So before we get into today's video, I'd just like to say that there is a giveaway going alongside today's video to be in with a chance of winning a Basonte, an AMX Chaffee, 10 × 2 silver boosts, 1 million silver, or a confidential key card. All you have to do is comment on this video with your gamer tag and platform. The winners will be drawn on the 31st of May, and I will be announcing the winners in the pinned comment on today's video as well as on my Twitter, which can be found in my description. So thank you all so much for supporting my content and good luck with the giveaway. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It's Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I have the pleasure of reviewing the brand new Cold War premium tank, the M60AX. This American Era 3 premium medium tank is in the Western Alliance in the Cold War game mode, and I have been having an absolute blast today playing this tank, making a ton of silver. It's a fantastic combination of mobility, pretty useful armor, especially on the turret, and ferocious DPM. And in today's video I'll be telling you all you need to know about the M60AX. I'll be comparing it to a couple of Tech Tree Era 3 tanks that are pretty close to the M60AX in terms of their guns and their mobility and the hit points. I'll also be comparing it to the other Era 3 premium tanks. I'll be showing you my commander and equipment setup. I'll be telling you the price, and I'll also be showing you the armor viewer in the garage to see how the armor is situated around this pretty chunky boy tank. I've also got two gameplays for you at the end to show how this tank performs and how I like to play the tank and the kind of games that I've been getting in it. So to start off, let's have a little look at the tank itself with the pictures on here on the portal on the Water Tanks console webpage. And as you can see, it is a pretty chunky boy. It doesn't have that sort of familiar boat-shaped hull that the M48 pattern does in the World War II game mode. It does have a pretty well angled, pretty well sloped back lower plate and upper plate. It has a pretty big turret which has some very well angled front, right and left armor. However, it does have a pretty flat mantlet, a little flappy bit here on the front. I'm pretty sure it's not flappy, it's actually quite thick, but it also has a very big turret ring for you to shoot at, and it has a cupola on top of the tank, as you can't quite see in that picture. As you can see, it has some side skirts, so hopefully this thing will be pretty good at side scraping. You'll have to watch the gameplay to find out, but you can see that it does have a very large silhouette. This is going to be easily spotted, so you're going to have to make use of all those ridge lines and hard cover when you are playing this tank. But in contrast to the M48 pattern in the World War II game mode, this is actually a quite highly mobile tank, and it weighs a fair ton, and I've done quite a bit of ramming damage, but you do have to bear in mind that you have less hit points than obviously the top Era 3 tanks, so you have to ram when it is perfectly acceptable to do so, which in my opinion is pretty much all of the time, but mainly towards the end of the game when you aren't going to throw your tank away. So let's have a little look down here at the price, and as has been the trend recently, there is a savings going on from the get-go. It's 30% off the bundle. So for the primed bundle with the equipment and all of the bells and whistles, it's 16,400 gold, which is a lot of money. So if you need all of that, it could be a good deal. However, if you want to get the base bundle, which is available as this video goes out, it's 10,000 gold, which is actually a pretty good price for an Era 3 premium tank that does absolutely print silver. And this is 4,000 gold less than the Type 59D was, which is the Chinese Era 3 medium tank, the premium tank that came out a short while ago, which is also a pretty decent money maker. It's 4,000 gold less than that, and it's sort of not much more than some of the World War II premiums go, especially the tier 10 premium tanks. So yeah, you might want to consider getting this tank if you think this suits your play style. So let's have a little look over here at the spreadsheet that I have created here. As you can see, there's lots of colors again. So this first sheet that I have created is comparing it to the Type 59D, which I just mentioned, and the MBT70, which you can currently get, I believe, for around 7,000 gold in the premium tank tech tree with the the, I think it's 30% off tier 10s or whatever it is. So I've decided to compare it to that because I've seen a lot of them around on the battlefield recently. And the second sheet here is the M60AX compared to the Chinese Type 88A medium tank and the Chieftain Mark 11 heavy tank. So I'll mention all of the statistics in just a bit, but let's go first to this first sheet and have a look at the M60AX compared to the Type 59D and the main battle tank 70. So in terms of the bonuses, you can see that it has joint worst with the main battle tank 70 in terms of its XP at 20%, but it's only 5% less than the Type 59D at 25%. In terms of the silver bonus, which is the one you're going to be wanting to get these premium tanks for, it has the joint best with the MBT70 at 55% silver bonus, and all of these premiums have a 10% commander XP bonus. In terms of the hit points then, as you can see, this is orange, which means it's somewhere in the middle, red is the worst, and green is the best, and yellow is just a talking point. So I've just compared basically the two medium tanks here, which is the M60AX and the Type 59D, as the MBT70 is a heavy tank. So you can see that it's kind of somewhere in the middle of all this, but in terms of comparisons to the Type 59D, it is better at 3,300 hit points. It also comes out on top in terms of view range with 545 meters view range, which is always very nice. And now we come on to the mobility, and we'll just ignore this bit here, which is the MBT70. That is a very unique heavy tank in the fact that it can go forwards and backwards at the same speed, which is 64 kilometers an hour, and it also has the best power to weight ratio. But we'll ignore that, and we'll compare the M60AX to the Type 59D. And as you can see, there's a lot of green here, so that's very good news in terms of the M60AX compared to the Type 59D. It has a 1,180 horsepower engine, 21.25 power to weight ratio, a 72.4 kilometers an hour top forward speed, and a 27.3 kilometers an hour reverse speed. The whole traverse is 36 degrees a second, which is pretty slow, and that is a lot worse than the Type 59D's whole traverse at 48 degrees a second. However, it does beat the Type 59D in terms of turret traverse at 38 degrees a second, and these details here are just the updated statistics with my commander and my equipment setup, and I'll be talking about that in just a little bit. But now we're going to head over and have a look at the guns, and obviously that's another big thing that you're going to want to get this tank for. So this has a 105mm gun like the Type 59D, but obviously they are a lot less than the MBT's 152mm gun that does a whopping 780 alpha damage but has absolutely awful pen. So we're going to have a look at the set out here of the ammunition. So with the M60AX you get premium and standard APF SDS rounds, and you get HEP rounds, which are the high penetration HE rounds, meaning that you can do a little bit more alpha damage. So on the standard and premium rounds you do 480 alpha damage, and on the HEP rounds you do 590 alpha damage. In terms of the speed, it's pretty good news for the shell velocity. With the standard rounds it's 1,493 meters a second, with the premium 1,505 meters a second, and with the HEP it does drop down by half at 736 meters a second. But the standard and premium are more than enough to lead at mid to long ranges, so you don't have to adjust it an awful lot. And as you can see, this is coloured in green, which means that I approve of that, because I don't actually have the Type 59D shell velocity, as I didn't end up purchasing the tank in the end. I was going to wait for it to come back on sale in the future. However, as you can see here, there is a lot of red underneath the pen, and this is the disappointing aspect of the M60AX. It's got a standard penetration of 494mm, a premium penetration value of 583mm, and 270mm of HEP pen. This is a lot worse than the Type 59D, which has 605 on the standard, 650 on the premium, and 290 on its HESH rounds, but it is a lot better than the MBT70's god-awful penetration for Era 3. As you can see here, 350, 380, and 450 on the 80GM. So the penetration does let it down. However, if you were to choose the premium APF SDS rounds, you can still make a lot of silver, you have better shell velocity, and your pen does jump up by 89mm, which does help out a lot. And those rounds can come in useful when you're firing at lightly armored targets. But if you're looking at penetration in a medium tank, then you're going to want to look at the Type 59D with its 605 on the standard and 650mm of penetration on the premium rounds. So if we have a look at the gun handling now, then we'll have a quick look at that, and it's absolutely fantastic news. As you can see, pretty much everything is coloured in green here for the M60AX. You have a base aim time of 1.7 seconds, an accuracy of 0.19, which is absolutely phenomenal, a DPM of 4,502, a base reload of 6.4 seconds. You carry 63 rounds of ammunition, and although that is the best out of this comparison, you can run out if you do fire on reload because it has such a great DPM. In terms of its gun depression, it's 9 degrees and 18 degrees of gun elevation. So in terms of its aim time, it's substantially better than Type 59D. Accuracy is substantially better, the DPM is ever so slightly better, and that DPM means that you can track people in place because that reload does come down to a pretty good level, as you'll see here with the updated statistics when we spoke about my commander and equipment setup. In terms of the gun depression, 2 degrees more than the Type 59D, same as the MBT70, 18 degrees of gun elevation, which is slightly worse than the Type 59D, but it is not too bad really. 18 degrees is perfectly adequate, and 9 degrees on ridgeline, you can make that work in pretty much every sort of scenario. And we'll have a quick look at the M60AX compared to the Type 88A and the Chieftain Mark 11. Bear in mind that the Chieftain Mark 11 is a heavy tank, so we haven't really included the mobility because it's not really fair of a comparison, but the Type 88A is this sort of bottom Era 3 Chinese medium tank, so I've compared that because it is similar in terms of its hit points and its gun, etc. So in terms of hit points, the M60AX does come out on top at 3,300. It's got the best view range, it does have the best horsepower, but it has the worst power to weight ratio, but then a better top speed. And as you can see, it's kind of just ever so slight differences in terms of the whole traverse on the M60AX and the Type 88A. The 88A does have much better hull traverse, but it's not too much of a difference if you do use the mobility equipment and you choose to sort of swap out your equipments and have a little play around with that. You can get the mobility to pretty much the same kind of standard, and that base horsepower, if you boost that with the advanced powertrain, which I do, as you'll find out in a minute, you get that mobility up to a pretty decent level. So in terms of the gun then, it's the same as the Chinese Type 88A. It's a 105mm, as we have seen in the previous sheet. This is less than the heavy tank, which is the Chieftain Mark 11's 120mm. In terms of penetration, then compared to the Tech Tree tanks, you can see here that it is somewhere in the middle, so it is coloured in orange here. The penetration on the Type 88A is absolutely phenomenal, like the Type 59D at 605 and 650. But the M60AX is actually better than the Chieftain Mark 11, the British bottom Era 3 heavy tank here. So, you know, it's not too bad at all, especially if you do decide to fire those premium APF SDS rounds. And the Chieftain does come out top in terms of its high penetration. HE, its HESH rounds at 310mm for 680 alpha damage. In terms of the gun handling then, comparing all of these tanks, as you can see here, it's a bit of a mix-max of colours. The aim time is somewhere in the middle between the Chieftain Mark 11, which has the best, and the Type 88A, which has the worst. It has the best accuracy by far, a substantial difference between the M60AX and the Chieftain Mark 11 and the Type 88A. It has a slightly better DPM than the Chieftain, but slightly worse than the Type 88A. In terms of ammunition, it kind of doesn't matter because the caliber of the guns are so different. It does have 1 degree less gun depression than the Chieftain and 2 degrees less elevation. However, the 9 and 18 are perfectly adequate, and the big thing about this is the DPM for a premium tank, which should be really worse than the Tech Tree variants, but it's not often the case nowadays, as they're obviously trying to push out some of these premium tanks and make them more appealing to newer players. I can perfectly understand why these statistics are sort of matching the Tech Tree variants now. So all in all, that is a pretty comprehensive rundown of the statistics of the M60AX. I'll just tell you my commander and my equipment setup now, and we'll talk about how that improves the M60AX. Then we're going to head over, have a look at the Armour viewer, then into the gameplay. So in terms of my equipment, I run advanced loader, improved ventilation and advanced powertrain. And in terms of my commander, I run 6th Sense, Born Leader, rapid loading, steady aim, rapid aim, snapshot, run and gun, armor angling and track mechanic. In terms of the equipment, I'm running the ventilation over the second mobility piece of equipment, the traction system, purely because I want to improve that DPM even more, and that rate of fire means you can keep people tracked, and I've been getting a ton of assistance damage doing that way, and that just means that your games are so much better. You get more XP and much more silver. The powertrain just gives that little boost to the horsepower. As you can see here, it boosts it to 1,239 horsepower, boosts the power to weight ratio. I now go 76 kilometers an hour forwards, 22.3 kilometers an hour backwards, and my turret traverse has improved dramatically to 44.5 degrees a second. In terms of the gun handling, that's obviously improved aware with all the gun handling perks on the commander. I now have an aim time of 1.53, an accuracy of 0.15, which is absolutely insane. This thing is like an absolute laser. In terms of the DPM, this is dependent on whether you use combat rations in the consumable slot. So here is without using the combat rations. I am using the patch kit to restore the health, but the DPM goes up to 5,914, which is absolutely incredible. And if you use combat rations, that can be boosted to 6,154 or more, depending on whether you use the combat rations in battle. That will go just slightly above that, which is absolutely insane. So now my base reload is 4.68 seconds for 480 damage, which is absolutely incredible. And if you can get those Hesh rounds to work, you're going to be absolutely ripping apart tanks in no time and making a ton of silver. But that's it for the look at the statistics of the M60AX. We're going to head over now to the garage and have a look at the Armour viewer. So we are here in the garage looking at the Armour viewer of the M60AX, and as you can see, there are a lot of different layers of armour, and this ranges from track armour to spaced armour. There's the armour on the gun, there's composite and explosive reactive armour, and the base levels of the armour, and they're all welded on top of each other, different angles, and it's very hard to tell from this the effective armour values of the different plates of armour. We don't have something like on Tanks GG where you can look at the effective armour values of the World War II tanks in the PC game mode. However, I'll do my best in this armour viewer talk through to tell you the weak points that I have found, how I have found best to angle this tank and make use of the armour. So I have a list in front of me, and we're going to start off at the strongest base part of the armour, which is 330 millimeters of mantlet armor, and bear in mind that you do have a 130 millimeter part over the top of this, and also a 101 millimeter part. So the strongest, or the highest I should say, penetration should go through the mantlet. However, bear in mind that it's layers upon layers, so things like heat, ATGMs will not go through this, and it's probably best just to avoid shooting straight at the mantlet of this tank. There are far better places to shoot, and speaking of far better places to shoot. We're going to head down to 220mm of armor here at the base part underneath the gun, at this part on the sort of turret ring here, which is 220mm. There's a little bit of weaker armor to the sides of the turret ring, but you should be able to go through this no problem with pretty much every penetration value in Era 3 of the Cold War game mode. And then we're going to head down to 216mm of armor, and this is the strongest part of the sloped back front and left cheeks of the turret. Bear in mind that these are sloped back and there's going to be layers over the top of this as well, and this is just going to be pretty much auto ricochet depending on if you're shooting up like this, it'll be able to ricochet, and if you're like this or like this, yeah, you're just going to be bouncing off the sides of the turret of the M60AX. If you're looking at it flat, this will be a penetration, probably no problem depending on how low your penetration is. Maybe things like the MBT-70 will struggle, but yeah, there are better places to shoot than the mantlet and the sides of the turret. If you're looking at it from the side, like I said, this should be an easy penetration, and it's a very big turret, as you can see. And now we're going to get on to the cupola, which is 150mm of armor. As you can see, it is a little bit rounded, but that shouldn't be a problem for the penetration in Era 3. And this value is also the sort of thinnest part of the turret ring here, but like I said, the strongest part is only 220mm, so the turret ring is a fantastic weak point, and if you shoot under it, even if your shot ricochets, it might go down into the upper hull or straight into the turret ring, so that's a good shout. This cupola, you're going to be able to shoot it if you're above it or if you're at the same sort of level, but Eastern Alliance low profile tanks, if this thing is using its gun depression, is going to be a hard shot to hit. And now we're going to jump down to 143mm of armor, and this is the thickest part of the lower plate. As you can see, it is sloped backwards at an extreme angle like the upper plate is, so at angles like this there's going to be auto ricochet angles, but if you're looking up into it, this will be an easy penetration. Likewise, the upper hull, if you're looking down on it, that should be an easy penetration as well. And this is, yeah, ginormous lower plate. This is a very big profile to hit if this thing is caught out into the open. And now we're going to jump down to 128mm, which is the strongest part of the upper hull. So yeah, it's weaker than the lower part, but it is sloped back, like I say, and extreme angles like this, if you're wiggling, moving in the open, you might get lucky and bounce shells off of that. And now we're going to jump down to a good talking point that I found with this tank, and this is this bit on the front of the mantlet. These little triangles on the front of the mantlet, they are flat here, and they are 90mm of armor, and you are only going to be shooting through this and another 76mm armored plate. So this is the place to shoot on the mantlet if you are stuck for shooting, if you can't shoot the cupola, if you feel like you can't shoot the turret ring, or if things face hugging you in like a desperate situation, shoot this part of the mantlet. And I've gone through this many a time, and this would be a relatively easy penetration for even kind of mediocre penetration in Era 3. In terms of the side armor now, then we're going to look at the strongest part, which is 73mm here, the front portion, or the front sort of 80% of the tank. And there are different bars of armor along the side, down to like 63, and there's also this 35mm bar down the bottom here. But with that, plus the 50mm of spaced armor, you can see here the side skirt armor, which is also on the turret. This thing can kind of side scrape against sort of the lower caliber rounds, like 105mm guns in Era 3, and as long as you're not over angling like this and you're angling like this, you should be able to absorb some shells into that side skirt. And yeah, that's about it really. So lower plates, an easy shot, turret ring, cupola, that little triangle on the front of the mantlet, and then you have basically the side should be able to penetrate easily, and the rear is yeah, a very easy penetration. It's 25mm thick. HEP rounds, HESH rounds, low penetration rounds going to go through this, and you're likely to set the M60AX on fire. So that's it for the armor viewer. We're going to go now and get stuck into the gameplay. Righty ho then, we are on Nomonhan in the first gameplay of today's video, and we're going to use the pretty decent mobility which we have boosted using the advanced powertrain to go across the north of this map and go to the brawling locations in the sort of C3 D3 location on those ridge lines, and hopefully we get there without getting spotted. And you can see that using the advanced powertrain means that we get off the mark relatively quickly. We're ahead of a few of the tanks behind us, meaning that we can get the first few spots off for our team if necessary and get into the preferable locations on these ridge lines to use the turret armor of the M60AX. And I use the advanced powertrain over the traction system because it just gives that boost to the raw engine power, and it means that you can get up hills and that kind of thing just a little bit quicker. The traction system, if you choose to use it, would mean that you're a little bit slower up hills, a little bit slower to get going, but you would have a higher top speed and your whole rotation would be 10% better. So in these two gameplays, I'm hoping to give you a good indication of the accuracy of the M60AX, which is something you probably won't have seen in World of Tanks console so far. It's absolutely laser accurate, and that is not exaggerating at all. You hit pretty much every shot you fire. If you miss, it's because you didn't lead it right, or you just have a really unlucky time. Whether you penetrate or not, that is a different story. So here on Nomenhan, we come to this location and we're just trying to help our teammates out that are situated in A4 of anything that's trying to advance at them, and then we're going to try and farm up this leopard. And here you can see how good this rate of fire is. We're able to put shot after shot into the track of that leopard 2, keeping him in place, getting that juicy assistance. And with the shot from my friendly VFM5, he is now taken out of the game, and we're already up to 2.4k direct damage and 955 assistance. And that BMP did shoot an 80 GM at us there, but our pretty good reverse speed there on that ridgeline meant that we are able to avoid taking any damage. So as you can see, I do run the enhanced whole patch kit, and that's because with Era 3, the more hit points I can get back, I can take 1 or 2 more shots, roughly worth more of damage per game. I have played around with using combat rations to improve that DPM even more, and that is good, but it just means that I don't have that kind of longevity, especially if I play aggressively like I like to play with the M60AX. So as you can see, this ferocious DPM has got us up to 3.6k direct damage and 1500 assistance already in the first 3 minutes of this battle, and there's a clutch shot there into the tracks of that heavy tank reversing over the ridgeline, that Chieftain Mark 11, which we compared this tank to earlier. And that's just the fantastic accuracy that you can get with this pretty damn nice shell velocity, and the penetration is pretty usable. In terms of the ammunition choice that I use at the bottom, I carry 5 of the HEC rounds, and I carry 29 each of the standard and the premium APF SDS rounds, and that works for me well. When I get to a good silver level, I'll probably just go full premium, because you can still make a lot of silver, especially if you use boosters, play-in and Era 3 premium that way, and it just gives you that more leeway to penetrate more shells, and you won't run out of ammunition firing at tanks and not penetrating. And I'm hoping that these gameplays give you a good indication of all of the good points, but also the weak points of penetrating, trying to penetrate the thickest armoured like T-72BU, Challenger 2, the M1A2 Abrams, that kind of thing. So we've already blocked 480, showing you that you can actually block the occasional shot of damage, and now we're just going to be using the mobility to try and get over these ridge lines and get side shots into the tanks that are fighting along the one line, and we're just going to try and get as much damage as we can. So we get a shot there into the tracks, pinpoint at sort of 300 or just over 300 meters, which is pretty it's pretty unheard of in World War II mode. In Cold War mode there are a lot of accurate tanks, but this is by far the best thing that I've played in Cold War. I just love this accuracy. It means that you can hit weak points at even mid to long ranges, and it just feels so good with this DPM, and I'm sure I'm going to love these sort of top tech tree Era 3 tanks when I finally get more of them, and I make more silver. So if I get this tank, I'm going to make that more silver, aren't I? So I'm pretty sure I'm going to pick this tank up right now. I was going to pick up the Type 59D at the time because I really enjoyed that tank, and I did recommend that, and I still think it's pretty good, but this thing blows out of the water in my opinion. It might just be my play style. And if I was thinking more in terms of maybe a newer player, I wouldn't recommend getting the MBT70 over this. I know some people were trying to compare this earlier. I don't know whether I saw it on Reddit, on Twitter or somewhere. I would highly recommend this tank. You've just got that DPM capacity. It's just a better all-round tank, a better sort of turret than the MBT70, and the penetration on the MBT70 means that newer players, if they don't aim for weak points, are going to really struggle to get good penetrations going. So you saw the ramming capabilities, I think, there of the M60AX pushing my damage total up in this game even more, and we are at the end of that battle in a quick 5 minutes game. So 9.1k direct damage, 2.4k assistance, just the first class mastery badge with 2 kills and 1609 base experience points, making just shy of 600,000 silver profit. So we're going to head on into the second replay of the review today, and then I will tell you my final thoughts on the M60AX. So the second replay that I have decided to include in today's tank review is here on Armour in the M60AX. I think it's just a perfect showcase of what the M60AX can do in terms of raw damage, assistance damage, as well as blocking. This is a great map for the M60AX. It's lots of ridge lines, lots of opportunity to use that 9 degrees of gun depression, the good turret armor. It's not so big that you can't get from one flank to another with the mobility of the M60AX, and it just feels really good to play on a map like this with ridge lines where I'm able to use the laser accurate gun at distances like this. We do track that M1. Unfortunately, we don't penetrate, but we're reloaded so damn quickly we can have another go. And yeah, we do a tracking shot. Someone absolutely puts a big beating into him, and we have 1904 assistance added to our game already in the first sort of minute of this battle, and we're just going to be floating around this middle at the start of this game. This is where I like to come on Armour, as you've seen in quite a few replays if you've watched my channel before. This is a great place for medium tanks or for light tanks at the start of the game in both World War II and Cold War game mode, just to get those early spots off, and it's just about good enough to use this 9 degrees of gun depression. The further left of this rock you go, the more you can use this 9 degrees of gun depression, but I'm trying to keep that rock in sort of way of those snipers that like to sit in like B7, B8 on that sniping hill that I'm firing at right now. This thing absolutely wrecks up the damage and the assistance, like I have said, and you're going to see some engagements where you get into sort of brawling with tanks that think, oh, you know, it's a brand new premium, let's have a go at him. He's only got 3,300 hit points, you know, I'm a top tier Era 3 tank, and they find out pretty quickly that your DPM is pretty damn good, and if they don't know where to shoot, then they can be absolutely ruined. And you'll see again the fantastic reload of this M60AX. We're firing at the enemy M60AX, keeping him in place. We're shooting at the tracks every single time, trying to keep him in place, just so we get that extra assistance, and that's going to boost your XP, and that is going to boost your games up to a very good level, and that's just a way to increase your silver earnings without even having to penetrate. So if you haven't got the penetration, go for the damage and shot, go for the tracks, let your teammates help you, let your teammates flank them, and yeah, play it that way and you should be good to go. And we're just going to go in now on this Challenger 1 with this friendly heavy tank. We only needed one shot because we're all pushing at the same time and we're being the aggressors here. You can see that the mobility is really nice. We get a shot on the move there. That's where running gun comes in handy with the commander skills there. On the move we hit that with ease, and now we're going to use this Rocket's hard cover and try and get shots up at the tanks that are either camping on the 9 line or on this B line here. in like B6, B7 in the sniping area. So unfortunately we do miss our shell there on the M1A1. However, we still have 2,529 hit points left. And yeah, that's why I carried that enhanced hole patch kit. It just means that I can get those few hit points back, maybe take a shot later. As you can see, at the moment it's a close game. I was thinking, you know, maybe I'm going to be needing those hit points at some point, and that's when it comes in handy, and it also means that I'm less likely to take module damage. So that's why I've gone over the combat rations. But have a little play around, see what you feel. Maybe you don't want to use a med kit, something like that. You could use the combat rations with this whole patch kit, and you could be an absolute beast in the games that you play in this tank. So you're seeing here the great DPM. You're seeing a little bit of the poor penetration here shooting at the Leopard 2A5, which has pretty good frontal armor, but as soon as they turn, that's the time to shoot. Track them if you can, go for drive rails, and that should be a good penetrating shot on quite a few tanks, especially things like the M1E2 or any kind of sort of Western Alliance mediums. A pretty good shout to go for the drive wheel and penetrate at the same time. So now we're going to use the mobility to head back towards our base as we're getting capped out. String theory is on at the moment, so if you haven't played with string theory before or you're a newer player, you'll know that people like to get those wins up, to get those XP up. It goes up exponentially up to a sort of ×5 as you go through the stages, and yeah, you can get to a stage where you get pretty good XP if you win constantly. However, it just means that people cap at the drop of a hat, which can be good for your win rate but frustrating if you're having a good game. But we track that person in place there in the cap circle. We set him on fire as well, get some assistance and some more raw damage. We've blocked 1,000 damage, and now it's just 4 against 1. I think I know where the enemy heavy tank is, because I saw this heavy tank fighting him earlier, and we're just going to see if we can get any shells in at him. It appears that I was mistaken. Obviously I was thinking of a different heavy tank, but we're going to use the mobility that we've enhanced with that advanced powertrain to get the shell in, the final shell in, pick up a kill, take our damage total just over 8k direct damage. With 2 kills, MVP slot, 4.7k assistance, 1030 blocked, first class mastery badge, and yeah, that's all there is to say really about this tank. It's a ferocious DPM, pretty damn good all-rounder that makes a ton of silver. This is without any boosters, and I fired a fair few premium if I remember correctly in that game. But I hope you've enjoyed this review, and I hope you found it useful. If you have, please leave a like and a comment below. I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this new format that I've got for tank reviews, and I've got some more gameplays in the M60AX, so I'll try and put them up as soon as possible. But that's it, and until next time, I will see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.